The phone buzzed on my desk, interrupting my focus on quarterly projections. My daughter Emma's name flashed across the screen, unusual for a Tuesday afternoon when she should have been in school. Mom, her voice trembled. Grandma and Grandpa are here. They're moving all our stuff to the basement. I gripped my pen tighter, keeping my voice steady. What do you mean, sweetheart? They said we don't need such big rooms anymore. They're turning them into offices for their business. Mom, they're throwing our things down the basement stairs. My blood ran cold. Robert and Diana, my in-laws, had always been entitled, but this was crossing a line. They'd moved in with us temporarily 3 months ago after claiming financial troubles with their consulting firm. My husband James, ever the dutiful son, had insisted we help them. I'll be home in 20 minutes, Emma. Don't argue with them, just watch and remember everything they do. I ended the call and gathered my things, my mind racing. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. While they were busy converting my children's bedrooms into offices for their struggling business, they had no idea who had recently acquired majority shares in their company. When I pulled into our driveway, Diana was directing movers to carry my kids' desks downstairs. My son Lucas sat on the front steps, his shoulders slumped, watching his belongings disappear into the basement. Mom, he called out when he saw me. At 12, he was trying to be strong, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. Deanna turned, her face a mask of condescending pleasure. Oh good, you're home. We're making some necessary changes. The children really don't need all this space, and Robert and I need proper offices to run our business. I walked past her into the house, finding Robert setting up his computer in what had been Emma's room. Her posters were torn down, her bookshelf already emptied. The bright yellow walls she picked out herself were now covered with Robert's business certificates. The basement is perfectly fine for the kids, he said without looking up. They're young, they'll adjust. We need these rooms for important business matters. Important business matters? I repeated, my voice deliberately calm. You mean for Mitchell and Mitchell Consulting? Exactly, Diana chimed in from the doorway. We have important clients to meet. We can't have them coming to some dingy temporary office. Image is everything in consulting. I watched as they continued reorganizing the room, neither of them showing an ounce of concern for my children's feelings. Emma appeared behind Diana, her eyes red from crying. Where are we supposed to do our homework? She asked quietly. The basement doesn't have proper lighting. Oh, for heaven's sake, Diana snapped. You can use the kitchen table. When we were young, we didn't have all these privileges. This will teach you some humility. I put my arm around Emma's shoulders. Why don't you and Lucas go to Aunt Sarah's house for a few hours? I'll come get you later. Once the kids were safely out of the house, I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. 3 months ago, when Mitchell and Mitchell Consulting started showing signs of trouble, I'd done some investigating. What I discovered was years of mismanagement, questionable accounting, and a company ripe for takeover. Through a series of carefully structured investments and shell companies, I'd acquired 51% of their shares. Robert and Diana had been so busy trying to maintain their lifestyle that they hadn't even noticed their company had a new owner. I pulled up my email and began composing a message to the board of directors. As majority shareholder, I had some concerns about the current management that needed to be addressed. I attached photos of my children's belongings strewn across the basement floor, evidence of the kind of judgment calls the current leadership was making. The kitchen is a common area, Diana announced, walking in with an armload of files. We'll need it for client meetings tomorrow afternoon. I closed my laptop slowly. Tomorrow afternoon? I don't think that will work with my schedule. Your schedule? Robert scoffed, joining us. This isn't about you. We have to rebuild our business. A little sacrifice from everyone is necessary. Sacrifice? I stood up, finally letting some of my anger show. Like forcing your grandchildren into an unfinished basement? Like throwing their belongings down the stairs? That kind of sacrifice? Now see here, Robert started, his face reddening. This is our house too now, and we need. No, I cut him off. This is my house. My name is on the deed. You are guests who have dramatically overstayed your welcome and abused my children's space. Diana laughed, that condescending sound I'd grown to hate. Please, we're family. Family helps each other. And right now, we need these spaces more than the children do. It's for the greater good. I picked up my phone as it buzzed with an email notification. The board had received my message and called for an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Perfect timing. You're right about one thing, I said, gathering my things. Family should help each other. Remember that tomorrow. What's that supposed to mean? Robert demanded. I smiled, thinking of the board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. Just that tomorrow will be very interesting for Mitchell and Mitchell Consulting. Very interesting indeed. As I headed out to pick up my children, I could hear them arguing in the kitchen, probably planning which other parts of my house they would commandeer next. Let them plot. By this time tomorrow, they'd understand exactly who they were dealing with. I pulled up to Sarah's house, where Emma and Lucas were playing in the backyard. Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight my priority was making sure my children felt safe and valued. The rest would fall into place exactly as I planned. The next morning, I dressed with particular care, choosing a sharp charcoal suit that I usually reserve for major client presentations. Robert and Diana were already in their newly claimed offices when I left, not even bothering to ask where my children had spent the night. I arrived at Mitchell and Mitchell Consulting's headquarters 15 minutes before the emergency board meeting. Sandra, the board secretary, greeted me with a knowing smile. Mrs. Harrison, we've been expecting you. The board members are quite interested in your findings. I nodded, straightening my jacket. I imagine they would be. Has anyone informed Robert and Diana about the meeting? Yes, they've been called in. They should be here shortly. Sandra's eyes sparkled with anticipation. She'd worked with my in-laws for years and had witnessed their decline firsthand. Right on cue, Robert and Diana burst through the office doors, looking flustered. What's this about an emergency board meeting? Robert demanded, then stopped short when he saw me. Elizabeth, what are you doing here? Before I could respond, the boardroom doors opened. Please, everyone, come in, Charles Montgomery, the board chairman, called out. We have serious matters to discuss. Diana's eyes narrowed as she watched me take a seat at the table. Why is our daughter-in-law at a board meeting? Charles cleared his throat. Mrs. Harrison isn't just your daughter-in-law. She's our majority shareholder. The color drained from both their faces. Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's impossible. We would have known. Would you? I interrupted, sliding copies of my ownership documentation across the table. Like you knew your company was failing. Like you knew your employees haven't received proper bonuses in 2 years while you maintained your country club membership. Diana grabbed the papers, her hands shaking. This is a mistake. This can't be legal. Oh, it's perfectly legal, Charles confirmed. Mrs. Harrison acquired the shares through various investment groups over the past 3 months. All above board and properly documented. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen. Now let's discuss recent management decisions, starting with these photos. Images of my children's belongings scattered across the basement floor appeared on the screen. Robert and Diana shifted uncomfortably in their seats. These photos demonstrate a concerning lack of judgment. I continued, my voice professional and calm. If this is how you treat your own grandchildren, the board has to wonder how you're treating company resources. This is personal family business, Diana protested. It has nothing to do with the company. Charles leaned forward. Character and judgment have everything to do with company leadership. Mrs. Harrison has also brought to our attention some questionable financial decisions. I clicked through to the next slides, showing years of mismanagement and questionable expenses. With each revelation, Robert and Diana seemed to shrink in their chairs. The board has decided, Charles announced, effective immediately, to remove Robert and Diana Mitchell from their positions as CEO and COO of Mitchell and Mitchell Consulting. You can't do this. Robert slammed his fist on the table. This company is our legacy. Was your legacy, I corrected. Just like those bedrooms were my children's spaces. Funny how things change when someone with more power makes decisions without consulting you, isn't it? Diana turned to me, tears welling in her eyes. Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? The basement is perfectly fine, I replied, echoing their words from the day before. You're older, you'll adjust. Although, I'd pause, gathering my papers. You might want to start looking for a new place altogether. As of this morning, I've rescinded your invitation to stay in my home. James won't allow this, Robert blustered. When our son hears about this. James already knows, I cut him off. I showed him the photos last night. He's the one who suggested I move up the timeline on this meeting. Their faces registered shock at this final betrayal. James had always been their safety net, their guarantee that they could behave however they wanted without consequences. "If you'll excuse me," I said, standing and straightening my jacket. "I need to get home and help my children move their belongings back to their proper rooms." As I walked out of the boardroom, I could hear Deanna beginning to cry and Robert arguing weakly with Charles about severance packages. I felt no satisfaction in their distress. This wasn't about revenge. It was about consequences and protecting what mattered most. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "How did it go?" "Just as planned," I replied. "They're out of their positions. Are you still okay with having them move out?" "More than okay," he texted back. "I should have stood up to them years ago. I'm sorry it took them hurting the kids to make me see who they really are." I drove home, where Emma and Lucas were waiting with their Aunt Sarah. Their faces lit up when I told them they could return to their rooms. "Really?" Emma hugged me tight. "We don't have to stay in the basement." "Never," I promised. "Those are your rooms, and no one has the right to take them from you." As we began moving their belongings back upstairs, I thought about Robert and Diana, who would soon learn that actions have consequences, that power shouldn't be abused, and that true family means protecting each other, not exploiting each other. Lucas paused while carrying his books upstairs. "Mom, are Grandma and Grandpa going to be mad at us?" I pulled him close. "They might be mad for a while, but that's their problem to work through. Your only job is to be a kid and feel safe in your own home." By evening, the rooms were restored, though some damage remained, scuff marks on Emma's walls, a crack in Lucas's desk from the basement stairs. But those could be fixed. What mattered was that my children were back where they belonged, and the people who had hurt them were facing the consequences of their actions. A week after the board meeting, our house finally felt like home again. Emma's yellow walls had been repainted, Lucas's gaming posters rehung, and the basement restored to its original purpose as a storage space. Robert and Diana had moved out 3 days ago, leaving behind a mess of paperwork and bitter accusations. I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the company's latest reports when James walked in with 2 cups of coffee. "Mom and Dad just called," he said, sliding 1 cup toward me. "They're staying at the Residence Inn while they figure things out. They want to know if we can discuss a compromise." I looked up from my laptop. "What kind of compromise?" "They'll apologize to the kids if we give them their jobs back. Dad swears he's learned his lesson." James shook his head, disappointment clear in his expression. "They still don't get it, do they?" "No," I agreed. "They don't. This was never about getting an apology. It was about protecting our children and showing them that they matter." My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. "You've destroyed our lives. Is this how you teach your children to treat family?" I showed the message to James, who sighed heavily. "Should I talk to them?" "No," I replied, deleting the message. "They need to understand that actions have consequences. Besides, the board has already appointed new leadership, and the company's doing better than it has in years." It was true. In just a week, Mitchell and Mitchell Consulting had seen a surge in employee morale. Years of Robert and Diana's mismanagement had left good people feeling undervalued and overlooked. The new CEO, Sarah Chen, had already implemented changes that should have been made years ago. That evening, as we sat down for family dinner, something that had been impossible when Robert and Diana commandeered our kitchen for their client meetings, Emma spoke up, her voice uncertain. "Mom?" She pushed her food around her plate. "Today at school, Grandma was waiting outside. She tried to talk to me about how we're breaking up the family." I felt James tense beside me. "She did what?" "I didn't talk to her," Emma assured us quickly. "I went back inside and told Principal Martinez, like you said to do if they showed up." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You did exactly the right thing, sweetheart. You don't have to engage with them when they try to manipulate you." Lucas looked up from his dinner. "Is it wrong that I don't miss them, even though they're family?" "No," James answered firmly. "Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, love, and treating each other with kindness. What they did, taking your rooms, dismissing your feelings, trying to make you feel bad about having your own space, that's not how family acts." The next morning, I received an email from Charles Montgomery. The board had unanimously voted to change the company's name to Summit Consulting Group, marking a complete break from the Mitchell legacy. Attached was a photo of the new sign being installed at headquarters. I forwarded the email to Robert and Diana with a short note. Sometimes, a fresh start is the best path forward. Diana's response came within minutes. You think you've won, but you're teaching your children to be ruthless. One day, they'll do the same to you. I thought about her words as I walked through our house that evening. Emma was practicing piano in her room, the music floating down the hallway. Lucas sat at his restored desk, working on a science project. These were the moments Robert and Diana had tried to steal, not just rooms, but our children's sense of security and worth. You know, James said, coming up behind me, I always thought keeping the peace with my parents was the right thing to do. But watching you stand up to them, showing our kids that they deserve to be protected, that's what real family leadership looks like. 3 months later, Summit Consulting Group had its best quarter in 5 years. I'd stepped back from day-to-day involvement, preferring to remain a silent majority shareholder. Robert and Diana had finally stopped trying to contact us, seemingly accepting that their actions had permanently altered our family dynamic. Emma and Lucas were thriving. The incident had taught them something valuable about standing up for themselves. Last week, Emma had confidently handled a bullying situation at school, telling the girl, I don't have to accept being treated badly just because you think you have power over me. One evening, as I tucked Lucas into bed, he asked, Mom, are you ever going to tell us what happened to Grandma and Grandpa's company? I sat on the edge of his bed, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes people think having power means they can treat others however they want. But real strength isn't about dominating others, it's about protecting what matters and standing up for what's right. He nodded thoughtfully. Like how you protected our rooms? Exactly. I smiled, kissing his forehead. And I always will. As I turned out his light, I thought about Diana's accusation of being ruthless. She was wrong. Teaching my children that they deserve respect, that their boundaries mattered, that they didn't have to accept mistreatment even from family, that wasn't ruthlessness. That was love. The company would continue to thrive under its new leadership, but that was just business. The real victory was in our home, where my children slept peacefully in their own rooms, secure in the knowledge that they were valued, protected, and loved. Some would call it revenge, but I called it justice, the kind that heals and teaches rather than destroys. That, after all, was the most important legacy I could leave my children.